Good morning, everyone. How are you? It's a beautiful day here in Melbourne. Beautiful sunny day. Going to catch some vitamin D a little bit later. Thank you to all those who have joined me on the webinar and are viewing the PowerPoint. For those of you who registered but did not make it, this will be sent to your inbox also. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jodie Siemens. I am from Taking Perspective. I'm a life coach and I help with accountability and mindset, mainly with busy professional women who find themselves running flat out in circles. So I hold these 15 to 20-minute webinars on a Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. The topics will vary from time to time. And at the moment, we are on week 6 of top tips for accountability. If you'd like to catch up on the previous weeks, you'll find them uploaded to my YouTube channel, so you can check them out there. So again, thank you for all those who have made it this morning. This is going live in my Professional Women's Collective group. If you would like to pop on across and join that group, that would be fabulous. You can view it there also. So let's get started with the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, I can find my mouse. It's always an issue. All right, so this week, for those of you who don't know, I get 2 screens running. So if you see my eyes moving around, that's why. So just reading off the screen. So week 6, we're talking about what happens without accountability, why accountability is important in the workplace, and how can personal accountability be improved. And I suppose for me, one of the biggest ones there is how can personal accountability be improved. So I do go into that one in a little bit more depth than the others. Okay, so here we go. What happens without accountability? So I've got a few points there. Failure to achieve your dreams, failure to achieve things that are important to you, because often, especially if we leave things to the last minute, we tend to do things that are urgent, and those things that are urgent aren't necessarily things that are important. Hello to everyone on Facebook. Thank you for coming on. Failure to have trust in yourself and others, failure to have pride in your work, and a lack of transparency and a lack of clear expectations. So there's just some points there. And if we think about throughout our growth years, we've learned to be accountable usually to someone else. As young children, we must do what our parents tell us, or potentially they will punish us, hopefully not too severely. As students, we do what our teachers tell us to do, so that we can get grades, or our grades might be affected if we don't. As employees, we must do what the bosses tell us to do, or our jobs might be in jeopardy. So our understanding of being accountable, for the most part, for our actions is driven by our need to comply to the demands of others. So no one actually shows us how to be accountable for ourselves. And one of the reasons many people fail to achieve their dreams and the things that are important to them is due to a lack of accountability. So to simply not take responsibility for your choices and your lack of action, these things are critical for your success. So if you're not accountable, you won't achieve your goals or the things that are important to you. So things like putting in action plans in place, making your to-do list and getting them done. Obviously not overwhelming yourself with your to-do list. A lot of people tend to do that. And so it's a way, and if you don't have accountability, you lack the ability to step back and analyze your performance. You won't be able to develop a self-discipline and a vision to get the results that you want if you have no way of measuring them. So on to the next slide, and we have tomorrow. So often this is a case of when we think about, and this does overlap a little bit with procrastination, because if we're leaving things to the last minute because we don't have our goals set in place, we don't have our planners set in place, and we're not meeting, and we're leaving things to the, right to that end point of our deadline, to a degree, you are putting things off. And so that's where the tomorrow comes in, and it stops you from doing the things again that are important. You tend to just do the things that are urgent. So it does overlap there with a little bit of procrastination when you are leaving things to the last minute. Okay, so what have we got here? Why is accountability, I've got that in big letters there, important? Oh, I have myself in the way. There we go. Important in the workplace. So it's fundamental to the workplace. Without it, it damages the entire team environment. It eliminates unproductive behaviour. Accountability eliminates unproductive behaviour. People in their workplaces value their work if they are accountable. It increases confidence and it builds trust. So primarily, accountability is a fundamental prerequisite for preventing, to a degree also, the abuse of power and ensuring that power is directed towards achieving efficiency, effectiveness, responsiveness, and transparency in business and workplaces. So a lack of accountability in your workplace will damage the entire team. If people are showing up late, or they are missing deadlines, submitting subpar work and so on a regular basis, these are poor work practices, and it begins to become the norm because people create a pattern. And once the pattern is ingrained, then it's a lot harder to get people out of the pattern. So accountability eliminates the time and effort you spend on distracting activities and other unproductive behaviour. Hello again to everyone on Facebook. When you make people accountable for their actions, you are effectively teaching them to value their work. When done right, accountability will increase a team's skills and confidence because they develop this trust within each other. It's like their own mini community. So accountability in the workplace increases the feelings of being competent, increases the employee's commitment to their work and to each other, and also helping each other. If someone needs help, be available as much as you can to help other people within your team, and that makes sure everyone reaches their deadlines. Be more creative and innovative with what you're doing, and a higher employee morale and satisfaction within the workplace. So on to the next slide, and we have me, you, me. So this is really talking about working together in that team environment in the workplace, and showing that everybody is responsible for lifting their own load and moving their own cog. If you've seen any of the other webinars, you will see that I talk a lot about people being responsible for the cog that they turn within an establishment. Okay, so this is a bit of a personal favourite here. How can personal accountability be improved? So if you think of accountability as a muscle that grows in time, it will grow in strength. It doesn't happen overnight, yet with good habits in place, it will happen. So here are 5 tips to creating personal accountability. So I'll read out each one and then I'll sort of put a description in also. Being accountable requires the right prerequisite. So what I mean by that is, first you need to recognise the reason that you choose to do the things and not to do other things, because your perception may be influenced by rewards or consequences. So going back to what we were talking about, as in if you're at school, you had to do your homework, otherwise your grades would suffer. If you're in the workplace, you have to do what you're told, otherwise you might be in jeopardy of losing your job. So that's what I mean by the consequences side of it. And other people, you know, there might be incentives to get things done. So this has to do with early exposure of accountability to others. And there's always a reward or consequence for the decision you make. When you act as you have committed, you You build a sense of accomplishment within yourself, and you base these feelings on knowing that you are being true to yourself. And I think that's really important. This is a huge confidence builder, and it develops over time. Again, it's a muscle that grows. So if I just read something else that I've got here, while a lack of training in being accountable to ourselves is one element, another may be our own resistance to calling ourselves out on the decisions and choices that we make. So I think that's really important. When we avoid being accountable, we make conscious decisions not to do something, and then another decision to downplay the importance of not following through. So that's where I'm talking about there. There's the reward and consequences for the decisions that you make. And going back even earlier when we talked about creating patterns. So if this is done repeatedly, we'll develop a habit of convincing ourselves and not doing what we say, and pretending that there's like no real consequences. So this level of avoidance and denial is has severe consequences on our ability to maintain trust and within ourselves, trusting ourselves, and also with others, so that we can create this stable level of conviction within ourselves. It's about trusting in yourself that you can get stuff done when you commit yourself to it. So the next one is know your limits. So what I mean by that is be conscious of what you're committing yourself to. Make sure that you have the resources and everything that you need, that you're committing yourself to. Some of the problem with accountability stems from overextending yourself, which then to a degree can give you permission not to do the things you've agreed to because you've overloaded yourself, or you've said you're going to do something that you don't actually have the resources to do, whether that's a physical resource or whether that's because you don't have the knowledge behind what you've suggested you're going to do. So a good way of not overcommitting is to define your priorities and devote time to them. And again, just remember that if you don't have the resources for something, and if you can't obtain the resources for something, you really need not commit yourself, and therefore you won't be worrying about letting yourself down. So the next one we have is find other things or people to be accountable to. So since many of us are conditioned from young age to be accountable to others, you can set up areas to be accountable to. You know, you might have someone who you work with, or someone in your household that you're able to set that sort of thing up with. Keeping appointments, use a calendar to lock them in. Planning your day is really important. So conditioning yourself to follow through with promises you make is the main behaviour that improves accountability. So being able to actually lock them into calendars and diaries, and just remember, things do happen too. Life does happen, but a part of being accountable is making sure that after something has happened, you're able to come back the next day and you're able to continue with what you said you were going to do, because everyone knows life happens. And we've got number 4, implement deadlines. So a good accountability practice is to place deadlines on everything. Without deadlines, things usually get pushed aside, and more favourable tasks tend to pop up. Again, that's sort of a little bit on the procrastination side too. So when this happens, you will likely attend to what is urgent before you work on what is important. Urgent usually finds its way to override importance. And so that's where the planner comes in. You need to plan ahead of your deadlines and make sure that you have all your steps in place. So the next one we've got is learn from your failures. So finally, give yourself permission to fail, I think. And I know this sounds really odd, especially if you're a person who's running a business, but people equate failure to some sort of financial loss or damage and setbacks. But in our personal and ordinary lives, I think failure accomplishes all sorts of things that we can attempt to do or tell ourselves we must do. So use failure as a tool of learning about yourself, and changing how you decide on your commitments, actions, and expectations. So you can sort of, you know, when something fails, you can actually do an analysis on where did it go wrong, where did you go wrong in the process. But that's also for wins also, because if you practice a positive accountability, which is something that I talked about last week, then you're ideally looking into the analysis of your wins. So really breaking your wins and failures down to know where you've gone right, where you've gone wrong, and how you can implement these in the future. Okay, so in summary, so we've talked about a lack of accountability in the workplace, which basically is having no action plan or list of getting things done, no transparency, and no ways to build trust within the workplace. If you can't step back and analyse your performance, you won't be able to develop the self-discipline and vision to get the results you want. And I think that's really important, especially in the workplace. Primarily, accountability is the fundamental prerequisite for preventing any abuse of power and ensuring that the power is directed towards achieving efficiency, achieving effectiveness, achieving responsiveness, and achieving transparency within your workplace. So again, I just touched on the 5 ways to help develop personal accountability. Be accountable requires the right perspective. Know your limits, find other things, people to be accountable to, implement deadlines, and remember, learn from your failures. And I will throw in there, also learn from your wins. Let's end it on a positive note. Learn from your wins, analyse those also. We want positive accountability. So I suppose we'll finish this off by saying, just remember that accountability, think of accountability as a muscle that is growing, and it will grow over time with the good habits that you put in place. It's not something where you can click your finger and just happens. It is definitely a muscle, and it's definitely something that grows over time. So we are at the end here. So again, I would just like to thank everyone for coming on, and who watched the live webinar, everyone in my professional women's collective group. Again, if you're not a member of the group, please pop on across and join. Would love to have you there. If you are registered for the webinar and were unable to watch it, you will receive this in an email. Again, this is week 6 of 8 for top tips for accountability. Everything else, the other weeks, have been loaded up onto my YouTube channel. So the live webinars are here at 10:30 on Friday mornings. So thank you all again, and until next time, this is Jodie Siemens from Taking Perspective. Thank you everyone on Facebook for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, pop them in your comments box. Thanks guys.